Nissan's return to the focus-sized family hatchback segment sees this Pulsar model offer a range of sensible virtues to take on the established class leaders. You don't get the fashionable flair here the brand reserves for its trendy crossover models, but buyers are treated to much of the high-tech cleverness and engineering that makes those cars so good, all wrapped up in a package offering value and practicality that's difficult to beat. Welcome to the kind of car Nissan used to make. In this case, the kind of straightforward focus-sized family hatchback the brand once sold here badged as a Sunny, or until 2007 as the Almira. Other world markets knew these models by another name all along, one at last adopted by Nissan for its return to the traditional C segment in our market, that of the Pulsar. This, if you remember, was the kind of traditional compact family car the company said not so long ago that it wasn't going to bring us anymore. Instead, the end of Almira production marked the beginning of a brave new crossover era for the brand as it ditched its traditional family hatch and medium range models and, to replace them, kick-started a genre that would become the fastest growing segment in the automotive industry. That crossover class, championed first by Nissan's Qashqai and later by its smaller stablemate the Duke, proved massively successful for the Japanese maker, so much so that it seemed this manufacturer's days of serving up conventional family-sized volume models were well and truly over. Not so. By 2014, things were looking very different. Nissan's alliance partner Renault had hobbled itself with a gamble on all-electric cars that wasn't paying off. To compensate, higher European sales targets were being set for a Nissan brand that was seeing its crossover class leadership eroded by copycat models from almost every other mainstream maker. As a result, it was becoming increasingly clear to the company's hierarchy that the market share they were striving for wasn't going to be reached without an ordinary bread-and-butter C-segment focus-size contender. And with Qashqai and Duke engineering and technology already providing the tools to quickly create such a thing, it was only a matter of time before a car like the Pulsar model we're going to look at here arrived in Nissan showrooms. When that happened in late 2014, industry observers immediately expected something unique and avant-garde, forgetting that the brand was already offering family buyers that sort of thing with its crossovers. No, the Pulsar's job was to go after more conservative buyers, people not interested in fashion or perceived statements of lifestyle motoring. So at launch, its attributes were more sensible ones. Value, safety, comfort, and most significant of all, class-leading space. These, the things you'd think would matter to folk in this segment, are the single-minded focus of a car designed to deliver them. Let's check it out. Nissan's marketing may talk of innovation that excites, but I think a more appropriate strapline for this Pulsar would be innovation that reassures. On the road, there's absolutely nothing about this car that taxes you, irritates you, or demands anything from you. Instead, at the wheel, you quickly switch into a laid-back, easy-going demeanour that neither delivers or encourages a dynamic driving style. This, of course, intensely irritates the scribblers on motoring magazines who don't come to this car with the same real-world perspective that likely buyers will have. Personally, I rather like the Pulsar's relaxing character. Many customers, particularly more mature ones, will feel that this is exactly how a family hatchback in this segment should drive. Under the skin, the underpinnings are certainly a lot more sophisticated than those you get from the rival Megane model offered by Nissan's global partner Renault, being based on the high-tech CMF2 platform used by the Qashqai crossover. The two main engines are shared with the Qashqai 2, a 1.2-litre DIGT turbo petrol unit with 115 PS and the 110 PS 1.5-litre DCI diesel that I'm trying here. We'll start with petrol power, as I think you should if you're planning to test drive this car. The base DIGT variant may, after all, give you everything you really need. It's very quiet. The cabin noise it makes at speed has been measured at 6 decibels lower than that of a rival high-end i30, for example. And those older customers who might particularly appreciate that will also probably want to know that this is the only engine in the range that can be ordered with the option of 6-speed Xtronic automatic transmission. Don't be misled by this very efficient unit's apparently small 1.2-litre size. With 190 Nm of torque, it delivers more than reasonable pulling power, and 62 miles an hour from rest is 10.7 seconds away en route to 118 miles an hour. If you do need more, then Nissan offers a larger 1.6-litre DIGT power plant with 190 PS, which offers quite a significant performance step up. Here, the rest to 62 mile an hour figure is improved to 7.7 seconds, while top speed rises to 135 miles an hour. If you want to go faster than that, you'll need to talk to your dealer about the potent Nismo models. On to the kind of drive you'll get from this 1.5-litre DCI diesel variant. Predictably, you lose a bit of the refinement that's so impressive in the petrol versions, but payback comes in the delivery of nearly 50% more pulling power, so you find yourself making far less use of the slick 6-speed gearbox. Here, 62 miles an hour is 11.5 seconds away en route to 118 miles an hour. If you do start to try and push things along through twistier routes, there are no really positive surprises delivered, but fortunately no negative ones either. Yes, a Pulsar does roll a bit more through the bends than a more dynamically accomplished rival like a Ford Focus might, but it's not excessive and traction's reasonable. For that, this Nissan has to thank its so-called active trace control system. This monitors the behaviour and trajectory of the car, then applies subtle braking to individual wheels when they're uselessly spinning away power through a tight bend. That torque being at the same time seamlessly transferred directly to other wheels that can better use it. The result is smoother cornering and the decent traction I mentioned when you're accelerating out of a turn. Appropriately though, as I've been suggesting, this car's comfort zone better lies in the school runs, shopping trips and irritating errands of everyday life. You don't get the Focus-style sophisticated multi-link rear suspension that would enable the car to better deal with unsettled surfaces, but the Pulsar's lower-tech torsion beam setup still does a reasonable job of dealing with bigger potholes and bumps. Around town, the light steering you could do without at speed through the turns really comes into its own, combining with the great all-round visibility to make this car supremely easy to manoeuvre and park, especially in a top model like this one with its around view monitor camera system. When Nissan's previous conventional family hatchback contender, the Almera, left the market in 2007, this is exactly the kind of thing you would have expected it to be replaced by. But that was then. This is now. How will this Pulsar's confident yet conservatively smart look be perceived by today's Focus Class C segment buyer? It isn't especially striking, but then very little in this class is. And in any case, Nissan doesn't need to be avant-garde with the character of this car, given that its Duke and Qashqai crossover models already deliver exactly that. That doesn't mean it can't be interesting, though. And if you look a little closer, you begin to get a feel for the care that's created this design. Let's start at the front and the hint of Qashqai you get in a nose section that sees the familiar Nissan badge framed by a trademark V-shaped mesh grille, the angles of which sweep upwards across the bonnet. Move to the side and you begin to appreciate how the emphasised wheel arches give this car quite a muscular stance, with a look already to be further developed by the Nismo hot hatch versions. There's some bold surfacing on the flanks too, as part of a profile featuring two prominent creases. This lower one licks up sharply towards the rear, giving a taut and tailored look. Then there's this more dramatic line that extends from the front wheel arch to the boomerang-shaped tail-like clusters at the rear, neatly linking both ends of the car. At the rear, there are further slightly incongruous hints of Nismo performance in this diffuser-style lower bumper element with its carbon fibre type finish. Above, the light clusters integrate smartly into both the rear panels and the tailgate, while a deep cutaway in the bumper provides for a reasonably low loading lip. But of course, as usual, the really important things are those you can't see. This car is based on the CMF Common Module Family platform that, in the Renault-Nissan Alliance product range, must support really quite large models, like the Renault Espace and the 7-seat Nissan X-Trail. Base a compact Focus Class family hatchback on these same underpinnings and you're likely to end up with a very spacious car indeed. And so it proves. The first evidence of this comes when you lift the tailgate and inspect the 385-litre boot. True, this figure isn't especially noteworthy in this segment, though it is around 25% more than you'd get in a rival Ford Focus. What is class-leadingly impressive, though, is the amount of room you get when pushing this split-folding rear bench forward. 1,395 litres. Now, to give you some perspective, that's pretty much the same kind of space as you get from a much pricier Ford Mondeo in the next class up. Unfortunately, because the Pulsar hasn't been equipped with one of those useful dual-height boot floor panels, you can't raise the base of the cargo area floor to create a completely level luggage area. I haven't got to the best bit yet, though. You'll appreciate the really unique selling point of this design from taking a seat here in the rear. The CMF platform I mentioned earlier gives this car a wheelbase that at 2.7 metres is significantly longer than its rivals can offer. To be specific, you get 692 millimetres of leg space, a figure that doesn't just match models in the next class up, but betters many of them. Against rival Focus-sized competitors, there's simply no comparison. It's not only that you can stretch out in a way that you wouldn't expect to be able to in a compact car of this kind, it's also that the width of the cabin gives surprising shoulder room. Indeed, this is the only contender in its class able to accommodate 3 adults across the back seat in any kind of comfort, each occupant getting their own adjustable head restraint. There's decent headroom too, although you only get this central armrest if you've avoided the base trim level. You continue to notice this car's emphasis on ease of use as you move up front. The wide opening doors and relatively high seating position make it easy to get in and out, and it's easy to get comfortable behind the smart Qashqai-sourced steering wheel. The twin-dial instrument layout you view through it is a model of clarity, with much of what you need to know delivered by a clear, classy colour TFT screen set between speedo and rev counter. It's called the Advanced Drive Assist Display and can either be set to show everything from navigation to performance data or be used to customise many of the car's electronic systems. Turn your attention to the centre console and you'll find a middle fascia segment that appears to float on top of a broad trim panel that stretches from door to door. Framed by glossy piano black trim, this centre section houses heating and ventilation controls below a feature most buyers will want to try and stretch to, the Nissan Connect infotainment system. Here's another element borrowed from the Qashqai, though unfortunately in this case you have to have it with a smaller colour touchscreen that's just 5.8 rather than 7 inches in size. A few of that crossover model's features are missing from it too, though you do get access to the usual satellite navigation, stereo and Bluetooth audio streaming features. Plus an impressive level of smartphone connectivity that connects users into a range of apps covering everything from music to social networking, entertainment to travel. There's also the Google Center Car feature that enables you to plan your route beforehand on your PC, then forward it to your car. That might be a little complicated to get your head around, but fortunately the remainder of the cabin functions don't require an extended session with your nose buried in the vehicle handbook. You get a proper handbrake rather than one of those fiddly electronic buttons, and there's no need to hunt around for the engine start-stop button, as you have to in so many rivals. There's decent oddment storage too, with the usual cup holders, the reasonably sized glove box that you get down here, overhead space for your sunglasses, and a centre storage box. As in the back, you can also stretch out a little widthwise. By sculpting out the door trims as far as possible, Nissan has been able to create the widest armrests in the sector, rather than the usual narrow little ledge that you normally expect to press awkwardly into your elbow. In summary, though it would be right to point out that other rivals have delivered greater levels of interior quality than this, there's no way you'd think you were in a Volkswagen Golf, for example, it's also true to say that few have created a better thought-out overall design. It's not perfect, of course, as well as some of the plastics being a little hard and scratchy. The seats are quite soft and lack any form of lumbar adjustment, even in a plush, leather-lined variant like this one. Still, you can easily position both them and the steering wheel to achieve an ideal driving position, and all-round visibility is excellent thanks to the tall windows and the slim pillars. Nissan knows it has to price this Pulsar tightly to attract the attention of family hatchback segment buyers, yet it doesn't want to be seen as a budget brand option in this sector. As a result of this thinking, we've ended up with a price span for this car that stretches from around £16,000 to around £23,000 for the single 5-door body style that's on offer. Most will want the DCI diesel version that I've been trying here, a car that's priced from under £18,000. I wouldn't automatically choose it, though, before first carefully considering the surprisingly efficient 1.2 DIGT petrol variant. Indeed, you'll need this base petrol derivative if you're to consider the £1,600 option of Xtronic automatic transmission. Few will want to find the £1,100 model-for-model premium Nissan asks to go from 1.2 to 1.6 litre petrol Pulsars, though there's quite a step forward in performance if you opt for the larger engine. On to the value proposition that represents, a pretty strong one all things considered. In volume 1.2 litre DIGT petrol guys, this Pulsar gives you cutting-edge new technology for the same money you'd have to pay Ford or Vauxhall for a Focus or an Astra with an outdated, thirstier, slower 1.6 litre petrol unit. In fact, a base petrol Honda Civic or Hyundai i30 with a much feebler 1.4 litre petrol engine would actually cost you slightly more than an entry-level petrol Pulsar. It's a good start. Bear in mind, though, that in this segment, base petrol versions of the Skoda Octavia, the Seat Leon and the Citroën C4 can also offer this car's efficient, powerful proposition and do so for Pulsar money. Nissan, though, will point out, rightly, that in model-for-model comparisons, these three cars can't match the specification this one offers. Otherwise, if you're a Nissan salesperson trying to convince someone into a 1.2 litre turbo petrol version of this car, the value proposition is fairly straightforward. Yes, you could pay a bit less and get a 1.3 litre Toyota Auris or a 1.4 litre Kia Ceed, but you'd be getting something much slower and thirstier. Otherwise, Pulsar ownership undercuts an equivalent 1.5 litre Mazda 3 by around £1,000 and a comparable 1.2 litre ETHP Peugeot 308 by around £2,000. And you'd have to pay nearly £3,000 more to get a directly comparable Focus 1 litre EcoBoost 125 PS model or a Volkswagen Golf 1.2 TSI 105 PS variant. So yes, Nissan has done its homework. Does that also apply for diesel buyers? Broadly, yes. Again, base diesel versions of the Toyota Auris and Kia Ceed only undercut this car on price because they offer feebler performance. A much better bet that'll still save you a little is Citroen's C4 1.6 Blue HDI 100 model. Otherwise, though, Nissan's got its DCI pricing pretty much bang on. So the kind of black pump-fueled Pulsar model that I have here would cost the same sort of money as directly comparable but less well-equipped diesel versions of rivals like Vauxhall's Astra, Hyundai's i30 and Seat's Leon. The cheapest diesel Renault Megane would cost you around £600 more, and you'd need to find £1,000 or so more for comparably performing diesel versions of rival family hatchbacks like Ford's Focus, Peugeot's 308, Skoda's Octavia and the Honda Civic. A comparable 105 PS diesel Volkswagen Golf, meanwhile, would cost you nearly £3,000 more. Makes you think, doesn't it? If, having considered all of this, you conclude that it is a Pulsar that you really want, then you're going to need to know just how generous Nissan has been when it comes to the standard spec. Well, you shouldn't be disappointed. Even the base Vizia trim level comes complete with 16-inch diamond-cut alloy wheels, a high-level rear spoiler, plus all-round power windows and mirrors. Inside the air-conditioned cabin, there's cruise control and a 5-inch TFT information screen on the dash, plus Bluetooth connectivity for your phone and a decent 4-speaker stereo system with USB and iPod connectivity and an aux-in socket. Most buyers, though, will want to find the £1,600 model-for-model premium that Nissan asks to graduate up to a centre trim. Now that gets you front fog lights, push-button starting, climate control, auto headlamps and wipers, leather for the steering wheel and gear knob, and a better quality 6-speaker stereo. Further up the range, niceties include features like LED headlights, leather seats, larger 17-inch wheels and power-folding mirrors. And it's to top models you'll have to stretch if you want to get your Pulsar equipped with what is probably the most important piece of interior technology available with this car, the Nissan Connect infotainment system. A basic version of this feature is offered with mid-range N-Tech spec, which uses the setup's 5.8-inch colour touchscreen to deliver satellite navigation, a reversing camera and a DAB radio. Here, though, I've got the top Tecna trim level that also adds to it two of the cleverest features you can have on this car, the around view monitor and the safety shield system. So, how do they work? Well, the around view monitor simplifies parking by combining the feeds from small cameras mounted on the front grille, both door mirrors and the tailgate to create an overhead 360-degree helicopter view image that displays on the Connect dashboard infotainment screen I just mentioned. The tailgate camera also provides further parking assistance via the Safety Shield setup's moving object detection system, alerting you to oncoming traffic or pedestrians when you're reversing out of a space. As part of Safety Shield, the same camera also provides a blind spot warning function that'll alert you to the danger of a potential collision when changing lanes, and delivers a lane departure warning system that stops dozy drivers from veering out of their lanes on the highway. A clever little camera, then, that even has its own wash and blow dry system to keep its image clear. Even without the gadgetry I've talked about fitted, the Pulsar can be classified as a very safe place to put your family, according at least to Euro NCAP, who gave it a top 5-star rating in their tests. All models get twin front, side and curtain airbags, plus Isofix child seat fastenings and tyre pressure monitoring. There's also the usual electronic aids for braking, traction and stability control, plus what Nissan calls active trace control to help you get the power down through the corners. Provided you avoid the entry trim level, you also get a forward emergency braking system that works at low speeds to constantly scan the road ahead of you for accident hazards. If one is detected, you'll be warned. If you don't respond or aren't able to, the brakes will be automatically applied to decrease the severity of any resulting accident. If you harbour any misgivings about just how frugal a 1.3-tonne family hatchback powered by a relatively small 1.2-litre engine might be, then you're reckoning without the torque the turbocharger of this pokey little DIGT 115 petrol engine can deliver, 190 newton metres of it. This means that you won't need to thrash the engine to make respectable progress, and gives you a fighting chance of getting somewhere near to the running cost figures that Nissan quotes: 56.5 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 117 grams per kilometre of CO2. Gratifyingly, these returns will be very little affected if you opt to pair this engine with the brand's smooth Xtronic automatic gearbox. Go for the pokier 1.6-litre DIGT 190 petrol engine and there's not too much of a price to pay for the extra performance on offer. Combined cycle fuel economy is 49.6 miles to the gallon and the CO2 reading is rated at 134 grams per kilometre. That leaves only the 1.5-litre DCI 110 engine I'm trying here, which manages 78.5 miles to the gallon on the combined cycle and 94 grams per kilometre of CO2. The bottom line is that if you want to do significantly better than that with a diesel model in this segment, you'd have to spend around 25% more on something like a Volkswagen Golf Blue Motion. Nissan's Pure Drive technology has achieved this kind of showing by paying attention to all the usual things. Reducing engine frictional losses, optimising gear ratios and reducing weight where possible. Plus, as you'd expect, there's a stop-start system to cut the engine when you don't need it, stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. If you've got the top version of the Connect set up, then you'll also have a sat-nav system with so-called eco-routing, a feature that sees it able to calculate the route likely to use the least fuel. The infotainment display also has an eco-score system which grades your driving based on pull-away, deceleration and cruise. What else? Well, residual values won't be quite as strong as some more established rivals in this segment, but the high specification on offer will help here, as it prevents buyers from diluting their residuals by adding expensive options. Finally, insurance groupings see the 1.2 DIGT models rated at between groups 10 and 12, the 1.6 DIGT variants pitched between groups 17 and 18E, and this DCI diesel rated at between groups 12 to 13E. Here's another of those cars that in reality is much better than the sum of its press clippings. Some elements of the media seem bewildered as to why the Pulsar exists in Nissan's lineup at all, but the two reasons for that seem as obvious to me as they clearly are to the Japanese company's marketeers. Firstly, that there are some fleet clients who won't consider the brand unless it offers an ordinary family hatch. And secondly, that despite all the fuss made over the rise in importance of Qashqai-style crossover contenders, ordinary Focus Class C segment models still account for over 5 million annual sales in Europe. The Pulsar's pitch for a slice of that market lies in all the attributes we've covered in detail here. Not only the way it's well priced, economical, relaxing to drive and quite smart to look at, but also its status as the most practical choice in its class. This Nissan is certainly bigger inside than all of its main rivals. These are strong selling points. Even if they continually define a family hatchback, you'd be more likely to buy with your head than your heart. There's nothing wrong with that, of course. Indeed, many would argue this to be exactly the way a Focus-sized family 5-door should be bought in this day and age. Approach the car with this sensible mindset and you won't care that it doesn't offer the last word in cabin quality or handling excellence. These things might be nice to have, but they don't really define what a car of this kind should really be about. In many ways, the Pulsar does. You can't criticise it for being the polar opposite to Nissan's fashionable extrovert crossover models, because that's exactly what it sets out to be. There's still a market for something with a less trendy portfolio of virtues. A car that's simply good value, cheap to run, incredibly reliable, and which doesn't draw undue attention to itself. If those are your priorities in looking for a compact family hatch, then here's a very good place for your search to start.